I'm back again with the discussion of the 10,000 year explosion as I discussed in segment 8 and segment 9, comparing the 10,000 year explosion book by Henry Harpending and Greg Cochran to my book called Apes or Angels, Darwin, Dover, Human Nature and Race. Both books discuss a classic case of the Ashkenazi Jews that I mentioned were unusually bright as a population, coming primarily from Eastern Europe, eventually becoming about 3% of the US population, and as I said before, showing outstanding ability in the sciences and in mathematics, in literature, in all spheres of intense intellectual activity and accomplishment. They outdo other groups. In fact, they're quite singular in that regard. And I discussed the Harpending theory behind it that basically states, to sum it up very briefly, that this group of people migrated out over Europe in the early 9th century, eventually spread out over quite a large area, became a part of many local communities, and eventually, due to special skills, religion, ethnicity, and probably to some extent bias as well, they were sort of pushed into a set of occupations that were highly specialized, dealing with various and sundry aspects of finance, and allowing them to gradually, quite literally, improve themselves, both genetically and in terms of their phenotypic expression of their skills, and that is good productivity and financial success in these fields. As they avoided, as I told you before, the extremely laborious work that about 95% of the people in those days did, which was some or another kind of farming that really relied on physical endurance and strength rather than intellectual ability. So in essence, the Ashkenazi Jews were able to become highly successful, favored in many ways, and successful materially to the extent that they could really produce a differential in survival. And their offspring were cleaner, neater, better taken care of, better fed, better protected, and all of these things compared to the poor would be a differentiating effect, and there would be an increase in offspring, and indeed many of the Ashkenazim had numbers of children from 5 to 10, and that was very common, and that differential paid off over time, because behind it was the basic biological reality that the mutations that they had picked up for higher intelligence were literally spreading through the population, which was a very restricted population, remember, and that the result was higher IQs over time, a gradual process, but it wouldn't take too many generations before by the middle of the 19th century, people throughout Europe began to recognize their superiority. They were recognized before that, but certainly it became a widespread belief that they were superior intellectually to other peoples, and that apparently seems to be the case. The corollary to this adventure into increased intellect is the sort of you might say the curse. The curse is that the Ashkenazim have a group of unique diseases that no one else has. In fact, there are, if we go into total compilation, it would be about 21 different disorders. However, most of those are confined to the brain. This is extraordinary. It doesn't appear anywhere else, as far as I know, in any human population. They have disorders like Tay-Sachs disease, Niemann-Pick, and Gaucher's, and several others that are basically lethal disorders. If you have a homozygous condition where you have two alleles, two genes for one of these conditions, it will express itself, and really the brain is so disorganized as a result that it leads to an early death for the child, usually. And if not, they are severely retarded and handicapped. So we're talking about extremely nasty, negative mutations that exist only in the Ashkenazim. And it's a matter of luck as to, since they marry each other historically, it would be a matter of just the luck as to whether or not you have the bad luck of getting the homozygous condition and having your child die very early. Or the heterozygous condition, which could mean a high IQ. That's the good news about it. In other words, the heterozygous condition is a huge advantage. The homozygous condition is a handicap. Ironically, there's a parallel, there are quite a few parallels genetically, and that is situations like sickle cell anemia in African Americans and Africans generally, which was built up historically as a protection against malaria. If you have the heterozygote condition, you have excellent protection against the malaria parasite. If you have the homozygous condition, you have red blood cells that are twisted and deformed so severely that it could be fatal to you. So we have the parallel situation here with the intellect in the brain-building genes that are prevalent in the Ashkenazim. So we have to look at the causes and ask, there are only two possibilities that could have been responsible for this in terms of genetics, and that is a bottleneck condition somewhere back historically where the Jewish population was extremely small, and for instance in the Amish people in Pennsylvania, the population at the beginning was very small, and they developed by pure chance mutations that were disease producing, and they are the only ones in the world that have these diseases. But they were produced basically randomly, and they are, when you have randomly produced diseases, they can occur, for instance, in the musculature, they could occur in the brain, they could occur in the eyes, they could occur in the bones. They could occur almost anywhere because it's pure chance. In this case, it's extremely unlikely that a bottleneck condition is responsible for the appearance of high IQ genes, brain-building genes in the Ashkenazim. And the reason is that the Ashkenazim had all of the conditions except for random ones, and that is that they retained their genes, kept them to themselves. They had all of the conditions to promote the neurologically oriented genes that would produce better brains. The actual way in which these genes operate is to modify fat molecules in such a way that they build connections between various neurons in the brain. They increase the number of connections, and they also probably increase the speed of the neural transmission as well among the cells in the brain. So you have several ways in which they can probably improve brain function, and this is very likely, as I said in my previous segments. So natural selection was probably the main cause of the Ashkenazim IQ advantage. Thank you very much.